Okay, good evening once again, everyone. My name is Joseph Sanchez, the Chief Operating Officer for the School District of Palm Beach County. We are privileged to have our school board representative, Ms. Karen Brill. I was going to open up the meeting to talk about where we're going to be talking about West Boynton area middle school 17 PP. Ms. Brill, you want to get us started?
Thank you. And of course, the minute that I turn my mic on, my clock in the background is binging. So I apologize to everybody. It was a good idea when I bought it. Anyway, for those who don't know me, I'm Karen Brill. I am the Vice Chair of the Palm Beach County School Board. I'm also your representative for District 3. And for those that don't know me, I'm also the Cobra delegate for Greystone. I live, I work, and I play in our district, and I know how very much needed this middle school is. It's been a long time coming, but we're finally here. I've asked for this meeting so that all of you can receive information and ask questions about the school. All of you in the community are the people that are going to make it a success. And so I do want to thank Cobra's President, Beth Rappaport, as well as my boundary committee representative. He's the person that serves when we do the boundaries for the schools representing our area. That's Steve Wallace, president-elect of Cobra, for their support and commitment to our community and to our schools. And I also want to make a special thanks, give a special thanks to Joe Sanchez, who you just met, and to Dr. Peter Licata, who you will be hearing from. So I'm going to turn this over to them. They have the agenda. I just want you to know that our doors are open. You'll find out how you can contact us, but we really do want the community to be involved in this school. I know how badly it's needed. And again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on such short notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. So you see the agenda in front of you. So you just had the welcome from Mrs. Brill. You're going to be hearing from Dr. Licata shortly about the principal selection, the naming of the school, and academics. We're going to get into the site logistics and some general information from the project manager, senior project administrator for the project, Mr. Aaron Howard. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the boundary, school boundary attendance process, so you can get some information about what schools are going to be, or what communities are going to be boundary for this school. We're going to get into a little more details about the site plan, the floor plan, so you can see what the school is going to look like. Address questions about site security and traffic, and then we'll open up for questions and answers. Like I mentioned,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows I am not the school board member for District 1. That's Barbara McQuinn. So for all of you who live in our district, we are District 3, and I just want to clarify that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. So we're just again, remember that this meeting is being recorded. If you do not want to be recorded, you can always view the meeting later. That's an option for you. Just a reminder also that we stay muted throughout the call, throughout the meeting. I appreciate that. We'll have people coming in and out during the presentation. We want this to be interactive, so there's an opportunity for you to interact. If you're not familiar with Zoom, if you hover your mouse over the bottom, there's a little icon that says reactions with a smiley face and a plus sign. And down there, if you click on that, you can see where it says raise your hand, and you can use that to raise your hand, and we can call on you once we get through the presentation. We also strongly encourage you to use the chat. So along the bottom of the screen, you'll see a little pop-up there, and you can enter your questions in there. And I'll be reading the questions, most of the questions, depending on how many we have, towards the end when we get to the question and answer period. But also we'll have some of my team members who will be responding to the questions in writing in the chat room, just to make sure we get to as many questions as we can. And then, like I mentioned, because we're recording the meeting, we'll have the opportunity to go back to any questions that we missed and pick those up and respond to you, put a general response out. And the goal is we're having a website for this school, and we'll have those questions and answers on that website. So you'll be able to see that at a future time as well. So at this point, we have a very brief video, about 1 minute long, and then following that, you'll be hearing from Dr. Pete Licata, the South Area Regional Superintendent, who will be over this school. Hey, James, you got the video?
Middle school here in West Boynton, right next to Sunset Palms Elementary School. As you know, education has changed.
Give us just a second.
Of course, it worked 5 times, James, before we started.
We're really excited about this opportunity as we're building a new middle school here in West Boynton, right next to Sunset Palms Elementary School. As you know, education has changed significantly over the last 15, 16 months, and this school will be able to provide cutting-edge technology with a medical program and a technology program and supply the community with an opportunity to have a local middle school.
The school site is roughly 12 acres. The buildings will be roughly 155,000 square feet. We expect to have 1,400 student stations at the completion of the school. There will be 4 buildings on site, 3 of them focused on education. Building 1 is a 3-story classroom building with media on the 2nd floor. Building 2 is a 1-story that will house art and the gymnasium. Building 3 will house school food service and the music program. Sunset Palms Middle School has an anticipated groundbreaking of 2022 with the completion August 2023.
This is many years in the works, and as we know, Boynton is growing all the time. As a Boynton resident myself, this is so exciting to see that we are able to provide this opportunity.
Joe, as they set up the next slide, you want me to begin and start?
Once again.
Hi, folks. Pete Licata here, fellow Boyntonite. Been here all my life for the most part. And what I said in that video is absolutely true. I am excited by this. Miss Brill and I have spoke about this for years. Her and I have worked together for, I won't say how many years for fear of disclosure, but you may not be district #1, Miss Brill, but you're #1 in our hearts. So, so with that being said, I think some of the things that are on everyone's mind at first, I think the first big things is, yes, we're going to have a medical academy there, and yes, we're going to have technology there. So students can start in technology getting industry certifications in middle school, which is big. Also, the medical programs will feed to multiple medical programs in here, so they'll have the leg up on getting into those medical programs around, which is really what we want to do. We want to have that pattern of success and have students track through these career programs, which have benefited our students and our schools for many years. The other question is, we'll get to the boundaries, but principal selection is big. Principal selection is important. I've recently placed probably with the superintendent's approval, probably 15 principals in the last 2 years. We're going through that time when a lot are retiring. We're getting some new upcoming principals that are phenomenal. However, opening up a new school, we're going to get a really good pool of candidates. I'm excited. I get calls every day from some of our principals who know how great a school this is going to be, and they know it will present some challenges, but it's going to be a superstar school because most of our new schools really attract a great group of people, like we built in Blue Lake and Boca, just a few. It's being built now. Addison Meisner and as well as Verdi, and we do have the contractor on this meeting as well, and he'll talk some about that. But amazing jobs on time, beautiful facilities. So let's talk about the principal position. It'll be posted on Thursday, and what I mean by posted is posted within our district website for eligible candidates. And in order to be eligible candidate, you have to have principal certification through the state, requires a master's degree and several classes and so forth. We're probably going to narrow it down to those that have principal experience, unless you have extensive middle school or high school or elementary assistant principal or district leadership experience. We're going to screen those candidates with a set of criteria that usually revolves around creating community partnerships, moving students, all students, the highest of the high, and the students that are, working their way up into level 3s, 4s, and 5s. We're also going to make sure that that principal is understanding of the community and at large. Public school has changed recently. We've got to make sure that we understand that being a building principal 20 years ago is a lot different than it is now. It's a lot more business-minded, a lot more marketing-minded, and there are so many more needs of our students. Mental health has now become one of our priorities. 20 years ago, it was on the screen, but now it's a high priority. So that's going to be one of the qualifications we're going to need to see. So we're going to establish an interview panel. The panel usually consists of several sitting principals or executive administrators within the district. It's very diverse. We want to make sure we're meeting all the needs of the community, making sure they're all represented. We also will have a COBRA representative like we've had in the past. And Beth, you will do that. You did such a great job in the last few that we've invited you back. Thank you so much for your time there. But it's important that the community has input on these candidates as we do that. It's done in a very judicious manner. I don't even vote for who it is. We do a collection of questions that are all the same. It's a very judicious process, and it's done with multiple people at the table giving their input on what would be the best piece for that. We'll do them in person, and then we select usually 2 to go up to the deputy superintendent and the superintendent. And from there, that is where they'll make the decision. That has been a very foolproof process we've had. We've, like I said, about 4 or 5 in the last year of some new schools, and it's been very good. It's worked for everybody, and the community being involved is important. We don't know when the board will approve because it has to be officially approved by the board in order to become the principal. But we're way out in front this year. Usually we do a 6 months out front for principal selection in a middle school, usually a year for high school, but 6 months. But we understand the needs and the importance of so many processes that take time, especially building. We want to make sure that the principal has the input on what the building should be, especially a sitting principal who understands the community, what kind of programs they'll have, and what's needed there. Moss has been phenomenal working with us and knowing those things, but having the principal there, he or she, has really made a difference. The principal will also start the process of the naming process, which is huge. The naming process is something that's done outside of my office. It's done within the community. It's done with students, adults, potential teachers, and of course the principal. And that is done through several documented meetings, and that's brought to the board for their approval as well. We want to make sure that the name of there we are, thank you. The naming of the school is important, that it meets West Boynton. We know that we just did Blue Lake down in Boca because the lake there by IBM was called Blue Lake, Big Blue and IBM, and it fit, it made sense. We want to make sure that the community is involved in that naming because the school name is so important. It's rare that we end up changing it. So this is big. So here it is, the committee will share 3 proposed school names and be presented to the school board. They will make the final choice, but it's usually ranked 1, 2, and 3. We always bring in the Historical Society as well. There's history out in West Boynton. In growing up here in the 70s, yes, I am that old. It looked differently. It was a lot different, a lot of farmland, cattle. So we want to make sure that that's important, that the history of the area is taken. We want to make sure that its names are recognized, the contributions of persons living or deceased, if that is the direction that goes. Again, the names of the persons actively serving in Palm Beach County School District as a board member or employee at the time can't be used. That's pretty important because some people have wanted some names. This is a great process. It's documented. It's worked well. And again, we want to make sure that everyone's involved with this naming. This is big. This is really, really big. This has been years in the work. Like I said, Ms. Brill and I have talked about this for many, many years. And it's important that we understand that every part of this process between principal and school naming is involving the community, and it is public. Once we start establishing some things, we'll have a website that will have all these questions. We're going to record this meeting and the questions, make sure they're there as well. But as we did with Blue Lake down in Boca, we want to make sure that there's a place to go for information, and also that my office and the regional office, and that number will be there later, is available for questions. We are not afraid of hearing from you, and we're not afraid of answering questions, because when you ask questions, it means we're getting input from the community. So do not hesitate if you don't get your answers or questions answered tonight. I believe that is me, unless I've missed something, Mr. Sanchez.
Next
Oh, we
up.
went over this, yes. The general education programming is going to be with every middle school. We have standards, 6, 7, 8 standards from the state of Florida. They have to be put in place. We'll also have some ESE. It hasn't been determined whether it's a cluster site or not. That'll come along with the populations of the registrations. We will have an ESOL program there because we know many of our folks in this community do have students that are learning English. The Choice Academy programs are going to be information technology and medical. Again, I see gifted programs popping up. More than likely, there'll be gifted programming there, as in almost every middle school we have. So that I can almost say for sure. I would be lying if I said it's an absolute, but more than likely it'll be a gifted programming there because we are getting so many. The boundaries that this incorporate have a large gifted population. So if that's going to be moving, then of course we're going to have to be housing some gifted classes, if not a full gifted program, which I'm expecting. So that's something that we will keep up to date as we see the enrollment. That boundary will really dictate the amount of ESE, the amount of ESOL, as well as gifted, but all three of those will be there. I think we're getting into some questions regarding facilities and such.
But, yeah, we're going to come back to the questions later, Dr. Licata. This
All right.
presentation will come back to the questions. I think that's Aaron.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Howard with the School District of Palm Beach County. I work for the Facilities Construction Office. I'm the Senior Project Administrator on this project. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the school. We're planning for roughly 1,300 students with 1,460 student stations. The 12-acre school site will be made up of 4 buildings. The first building, building number 1, will be a 3-story building that houses the administration, the media, and the classrooms within about 105,000 square foot. The second building, building number 2, will be a single-story building that houses the art classrooms, the gymnasiums, locker rooms, fitness equipment. And that one's going to be about 21,000 square feet. The third, building 3, will be a single-story building that houses the music classrooms, the dining hall or multi-purpose room, the kitchen and the serving lines. And that one's roughly about 24,000 square feet. Last but not least is building number 4, where the chiller yard, electrical equipment, and generator will be housed. This building is the smallest at 3,700 square feet. West Boynton area middle school will be a combined total of roughly 150,000 square feet, with construction beginning in June and opening August of next year. Thank you.
All right, I'm up now. Good evening. I'm Jason Link, Manager School Enrollment and Demographics. I'm going to briefly discuss the attendance zone setting process for new middle school 17 P, which will commence this fall. Next slide, please. All right, so this map displays middle school 17 P and the surrounding middle school attendance zones. The new school, which is designated by the neon green dot, is located in the current Woodlands Middle School attendance zone, which is displayed in the light brown color. The new school location is also in close proximity to portions of the Krista McAuliffe Middle School attendance zone, which is displayed in the light pink color. So per school board policy, when setting or changing attendance zones, we must consider each school's capacity and attempt to achieve optimal enrollment and utilization. That will be our prime focus for all the schools involved. Just as we did with Blue Lake down in Boca Raton, which will be opening this fall. You know, the prime goal is achieving that optimal utilization. We'll also consider other factors when we're looking at the zones, including compact zones, proximity, elementary to middle and middle to high school feeder patterns, avoiding dividing subdivisions, as well as other secondary criteria listed in the policy, though the mandatory criteria is the attempt to achieve optimal enrollment and utilization. So this chart displays, the chart that's currently on the screen displays the potential schools to be relieved during the attendance zone setting process, which for now includes Krista McAuliffe and Woodlands Middle Schools. So we see the schools anticipated opening date, August 2023, attendance zone process commencing in fall, winter 2022. As stated on the chart, though, additional schools may be included based upon review of school year 22-23 11th day enrollment. So once we reach the 11th day enrollment, which is slated for August 25th, we'll review actual enrollment against projected enrollment and then make a final determination as to the schools to be included in the boundary studies. And as stated at the bottom of the slide, to monitor the attendance zone change, if you want to, there we go, to monitor the process, including any proposed studies. If you want to go back one slide, the website's on the, there we go, thank you. To monitor the boundary studies that will be proposed and all future meetings, including the advisory boundary committee meeting, please visit the student enrollment and demographics website at www.pbcschoolzones.info. So all these studies and the meeting dates will be continuously updated on the website. All right, next slide, please. And finally, we have the flow chart displaying the typical annual boundary process. So I'll briefly run through this. So the Advisory Boundary Committee, otherwise known as the ABC, those meetings will commence during the fall. So the ABC will review the study or studies produced by staff, and the committee could either recommend a study go out for community input or request that staff produce an additional study or studies. Once the ABC votes to take a study out for community input, the ABC will then hold a regular ABC meeting and will vote whether or not to recommend that particular study to the superintendent. So just to reiterate, the ABC recommends a study directly to the superintendent. It's then up to the superintendent to make a final recommendation to the school board, and that recommendation may be the same as the ABC's recommendation, or it may differ. So once the superintendent makes his final recommendation to the school board, the next step is a school board workshop with the ABC, and then the school board approval of the boundary change recommendation must occur via 2 consecutive school board votes held about a month apart. Once the final school board vote for adoption occurs, the boundary change then becomes official and takes effect for the following school year. And applicable parents and stakeholders will be notified prior to each and every meeting via phone calls and emails. Thank you for your attention.
So Joe, would you like me to talk a little bit about the plan?
Yes, Renee. So Renee Chisola is the architect with Harvard Jolly. He's going to describe the design for the school. Okay.
So good evening, everybody. I'm Renee Chisola. I'm a principal at Harvard Jolly Architects. We're one of the, if not the largest firm in Florida doing schools for public school districts. And our office is here in West Palm. I'll take you quickly through the plan. I should start with, you know, whenever we start a school like this, there's 2 keys. We want a safe and secure school. That is key for us because the research shows that kids will learn increasingly better in spaces that they feel secure in on a personal level. And 2, to create something that's sort of fun. You know, we all went to much different looking schools, and of course, we all know that our children are all completely different people than we are. So the focus is to do both, to create something that's secure, and at the same time that we will build something that kids want to go to, and that school staff and administrators can make sure operates well. So some of you may or may not be familiar with schools like Birdie. It was one that we did in Boca. The school is organized around an outdoor courtyard. The idea here is that just as kids are in the building, particularly at the middle school level and with socialization that needs to occur, they need some space outside. Having said that, those 3 buildings that you see on the screen are completely encircled by a concrete wall, so that that security level is maintained at all times. Just to orient you a little bit on where we are on this plan, north is directly up on the page. And so to the top left would be the elementary school. And what you're seeing just off the page there is the circle, the parent drop circle off of the elementary school. So as you face to the right, which is east of us, that'll be the front of the school. And that's some of the pictures you saw that I'll take you through in just a minute. Everything in orange is the school administration. And so that's up front, obviously connected to the courtyard, but something that you can get to without ever entering the school. The school will have an entry into the administration area that is a single point of entry in a complete lockdown kind of space. The three-story building is organized by grade level. So effectively, sixth grade is first floor, seventh grade, and then eighth grade. And so we've sewn the building vertically, if you will. Blue is classrooms. In that longer building, the green spaces are special type of spaces, whether they're special curriculum or they're an ESE space. And then at the left end of that long building, the three buildings that look sort of like, or the three classrooms that look like they're mauve, those are actually three science labs. So something that's key here as I talk about the building being zoned vertically, sixth grade science is on the first floor, seventh grade science is on the second floor. And so we try to maintain that separation. Certainly there will be time when they cross for special programs, but for the most part, we want to keep those age levels as controlled and as separated as possible. What you see on the building at the bottom, which is the light pink, that's obviously our gymnasium. In the purple color that's also in that space are our art rooms. And then of course, the other things that are in pink there are our locker rooms. Those will lead directly out to the play fields. And when we get to a site plan, this will make a little bit more sense. So the kids are in this enclosure between all these buildings and the walls that separate them. To the left in yellow would be the cafeteria. As you expect in most schools, it'll have not only the kitchen area and the dining area, but that dining area will have its own stage. And then the two brighter pink colors that are in that third building to the left, those are actually band and music spaces. As you might expect, we want to take the kids from the band area or some of these music spaces onto the stage, and they function that way. Kids have the ability to eat in their dining area and if allowed, come out onto the courtyard area. You know, we find that in some schools it's allowed by certain ages or certain groups. But again, they're not even able to walk onto the play fields without the opening of gates and doors onto that area. One of the things, well, I'll talk about that in the site plan. Can you go to the next level, please? So this is obviously the second and third floor. The second floor is on top. The only difference is it just says we had administration on the ground floor on the right end. That was the orange color. What you see in that sort of teal color is the media center. So the media center and all of the same classrooms for seventh grade, and again, the special programs are on the remainder of that second floor. These floors have their own teacher planning areas. These floors have their own bathroom areas, and again, their own special classrooms. And then of course, the third floor sort of mimics that with what you see on both left ends being the science labs, the three science labs per grade level. Next slide, please. This is a view, I want to say directly south, but it's a little bit from the southeast. What you're seeing is the courts that are outside or just south of the gymnasium. You start to pick up the parent drop off here on the right side, and you see the classroom building in between. So it's you know, again, we are trying to create the kind of spaces that kids both inside and outside feel are cool, for lack of a better word. You know, the kind of spaces that they want to hang out in, the kind of places that they want to be with their friends in, rather than they just have to go to school. Next slide, please. This is a view directly from the east side. So you're crossing the parking lot, and what's between this parking lot, you know, obviously you can see some cars stacked up, is the parent loop. On the one side, even though it's only one story, on the left side is the gymnasium. That's put up front so that we could also use it after hours for community use without having to open up the entire rest of the school. And then the three-story building, that is the classroom wing. Next slide, please. And this is what you would see if you were on the parent loop coming to the front of the school. So you're coming around, you're seeing essentially the north side. If the picture was showing a little bit more to the right, you'd actually see the elementary school. The idea currently is that the two loops will act completely independently, so that we don't create any more traffic issues related to that. However, both the loops are set up in such a way where if you had an elementary school child and you were going through that loop, where those people are standing, would also allow you to drop off your middle school child essentially in front of the school as well. Next slide, please. A view inside the courtyard. Again, it's meant to give them a little bit of being outside, but in a controlled setting. The cafeteria is off in the distance, and you don't see that there's a lot of glass behind that covered area. The covered area is intended to also be covered dining. So they'll not only have the ability to eat inside, but they'll have the area outside for them to eat also. You see the covered walks. Everything is, all three buildings are tied so that you can get to any point in the school undercover. Next slide, please. And then the site plan, and perhaps we should have maybe started with this, but in retrospect, what you see is the three buildings in blue, the courtyard in the middle. You saw some of those basketball courts outside. So the school has, aside from the gymnasium, it has 6 outdoor basketball courts. Just to the left of the basketball courts are 4 tennis courts, and then a soccer field and baseball and softball. The long skinny thing along the bottom side is actually the 100-meter section of a track. One of the things we talked about early on was that even if we couldn't have a whole track, it would sure be nice to be able to do some field events and some running and those sort of things. So this is actually set up as a 100-meter section with the starting blocks and the runoff below. You see the large parent drop-off loop with the parking in the middle. And then to alleviate some of the issues that the elementary school has, right now they enter their service area by way of their parent loop. What you see is that we've taken our bus loop around the back, around the left side or the west side, and off of that, we've connected our service area with their service area. So we're trying to alleviate some of the general traffic issues that affect the entire site. And of course, in light blue is the elementary school. So for the people that were asking about the fields, again, indoor basketball. Indoor basketball will also include volleyball. Then you see the outdoor 6 basketball courts, the 4 tennis courts, softball, baseball, a soccer field, and at least the straight part of a track as part of this. Next slide. I believe this is it.
Thank you, Renee. So at this point, we're going to go through some questions, and let me just make sure I have the screen open so I can see the questions and I can see hands raised as well. So I'm going to do that. So some of the questions we've been trying to answer, but some of the questions revolve around, I see a few questions asking about how students are moved to schools and whether students can stay at their existing schools, the Woodlands or Crystal McAuliffe or whatever other schools they may be impacted. And we do have a process and a policy about that. And Dr. Licata, you want to start out about that? And Jason, you may have more to talk about that as well.
Sure. We just completed that process at Blue Lake, and it's pretty standard. It's been consistent throughout when we've opened new schools. The rising eighth grader that's been attending, either it be Krista, whether it be Woodlands, whether it be whatever schools they are, have the opportunity to finish their middle school at that school. That will be without transportation. Usually the siblings of those students are allowed to continue to attend at those schools as well without transportation. And Jason, you're my thought process here. Tell me if I'm wrong on any of this. But most importantly, when you do that, there is no transportation provided for those students. no siblings that are not currently attending will be able to follow through with that. So if I'm an 8th grader at Krista that's supposed to be at 17 PP, if Krista's boundaried in there, and my brother or sister is a 5th grader and I leave to 9th grade and they come into 6th grade, they will not be able to take advantage of that grandfathering. They'll have to continue to stay. They'll have to follow the process of going into 17 PP. The students that are in the medical academy or the IT academies at these schools that maybe are in there, they have the opportunity to move into those academies immediately. If they're 8th graders and they wish to stay, yes, they'll be able to stay as well. This has been our consistent policy for those types of openings, as well as far as I see, we're going to be opening 6, 7, and 8. Just like we did down in Blue Lake, we did K through 5. We're expecting obviously 5 to be our lowest number, our 5th grade, because some students will stay at their schools that they've been going to for a while. So that is the quick version of the process. There'll be a lot of information once we establish boundaries. We cannot do any more than just tell you what our consistent policy has been over the years until we establish those boundaries, and then we'll start reaching out. But I think, Mr. Link, do you have anything to add to that?
Now, Pete, you were spot on.
You're on
covered
mute.
all the bases with the,
You're on mute, Jason.
No, he's not. We can
Oh.
hear him. We can hear you. I think Pete, I think Pete's microphone maybe speaker may be
Oh.
low.
Okay, you can hear me. Now, Pete, you were spot on. You covered all the bases of who would be permitted to remain, and I really don't have anything to add. I mean, you covered it correctly.
Yeah. So there was one question about whether we fill all 3 grades at once. So the answer to that question is yes. So, but you do have, as Dr. Licata said, you do have the right to stay. If you're a rising 8th grader, you can stay at your home school. Your child can stay at your home school.
Right, and I'll add to that. So we would anticipate the 8th grade enrollment in that first year to be low. You know, as we are with Blue Lake, we're anticipating that 5th grade to be the lowest grade, and then the subsequent year we'll have that we'll expect that full complement of 6 through 8. But first year we would anticipate a lower 8th grade enrollment.
Thank you. Okay, so I think most of a bunch of other questions have been answered. Somebody asked about a culinary program. Right now, there's not a culinary program. We assist the medical and information technology. Pete, you want to answer to that?
I see a good question that's going to be asked a lot by iPhone, whoever that would be. Would you have to choice lottery in to get to that grandfathered placement? The process is clear once we establish who those students are. We ask them to fill out a reassignment. It has the qualifications of the reassignment and what is needed from the reassignment, which includes the parent signing, knowing the conditions, no transportation. But once we establish those students, and we just finished this last week, we reach out to those parents and say, you're slated to move to 17 PP. Here's your reassignment form. Are you interested in staying? Because you are eligible to stay at your school. So we've actually went out, and it used to be the old way around where you had to come to us. We've changed that now. We actually go out to everybody and give them the opportunity. So they see that we give them the form and make sure they understand. That's going to be a very popular question once we get through this boundary process. But for the recording here, it's noted that that's how we're going to do the process.
So a question from Nicole Perry was, will the bus loop portion connect to the traffic circle that was just put in as part of the park? Renee, do you understand the question? Or Dave, you understand the question? You want to answer it? You come off me.
Sure, it is not. It does not connect directly with it. The entrance to the bus loop is just south of the new circle that was constructed.
Okay, I think we answered this. You answered the question about that from my phone. So Danielle Gillis asks, is to be clear, where will the school entrance be located? At the end of Sunset Palms entrance, not at Connector Road, right? I am concerned about the Canyons residents' access to Connector Road being impacted by both the construction and school traffic. You want to pull that site plan back up again if you can? There's a site plan, James.
Joe, would you like me to answer?
Yeah, Renee, if you want to discuss the entrance.
So the entrance into the school is from Abruzzo, which is the road on the south boundary. It's separating the school property from the park property. Early on in the process, one of the things that was studied was the traffic currently backing up as it was going north and turning in. And the decision was made that we could alleviate the actual backup if we didn't try to stack both middle school and elementary school parents on the same road. Hence the entry off of Abruzzo down below. The other thing that occurs is that this bus loop was done on purpose. I'm sorry, this parent loop was done on purpose to hold a lot of cars. If you can imagine entering the elementary school loop right now, as you come in and do half that circle, you're dropping off at the front of the school. So even though the circle is very large, you're not really using the other half of the circle, the south side of the circle, for actual drop off. By doing the 2 lanes of inbound cars from Abruzzo, we actually stack more cars than the bigger circle at the elementary school level. So the short answer to the question is Abruzzo was done on purpose after the traffic study. It was a traffic study that also has been reviewed by county traffic, and of course they have to agree with those assumptions. But there's 2 lanes of stacking on the parent loop for the entire loop.
Can you, James, can you show in your cursor what that is, just in case people are not following?
Sure. So I'll describe it again. So there's 2 lanes coming in there. And that 2 lanes coming onto the site for the parent loop go all the way around to the front of the school. And it's sort of why that red area is actually the cover drop. It's sort of why we push that so far south, because we want to stack all those parents onto the loop before they back out onto Abruzzo. And again, it keeps us from some of the things that have happened with the intersection of the elementary school and the stacking of cars trying to get into that loop.
Okay, so I believe that answers the question, but if not, then please type your question in or raise your hand, Danielle. I'm going to Jerry Alper's question. Will all Sunset Palm students be zoned for this middle school? JC, you want to take that question?
Right. Yeah, we're not prepared at this point. We haven't made the determination which specific neighborhoods are going to be zoned. That will be determined when we reach the boundary process. As I mentioned, when we reach the 11th day, we'll look at the numbers throughout areas of the communities, and then make a determination of exactly what the zone will look like, what communities will be included in order to best utilize the schools that will be involved and best load WP. So that just has not been determined as of yet, but stay tuned. That will be posted during the fall months when we derive the boundary studies.
Thank you, Jason. Lisa Youngleson asks, if you are not in a choice program and you are going into 7th grade when school opens, can you enter the choice program when moving into the school?
I'll get that, Joe. More than likely, if there's seats that are still open for that class, let's say there's one 7th grade medical class and we have approximately 15 kids move into the medical program there, then we will be able to fill it in with the remaining 7 to 10 students that would go to reach the classroom size limit. That's the only way that would happen, unless there were 2 sections, of course, but usually we have a section of each in medical. We're expecting to see the 6th and the 7th grade to have 2 sections, whereas the 8th grade would only have 1. Again, going back to Mr. Link's discussion about the 8th grade probably being the lowest number of students. So in my example, we would probably have two units or 2 sections of that for 7th grade. I can't promise you, I don't know how many kids are going to move over from the others, but if there's open seats, yes, that's how that would happen, and we'd lottery them in. And if we would have to run a special lottery, we would do so, but more than likely be able to do it right from the current lottery.
Thank you, Dr. Licata. Next question from Stephanie is, will the new boundary still be west of the turnpike? And Jason, I think the answer to the question is that we don't know what the boundary is yet, right?
Correct. It's pretty much the
Won't be
answer from the previous question applies to that one as well. That
Yeah.
will be determined. Yes.
won't be premature. Let the process work. All right, Steve Wallace asks, if you're a zone for the school and will be moving there when it opens in 6th grade, can the kids get into the choice program or do they have to apply to the choice lottery?
I'll take that, Joe. When we established since we've established the medical and the IT program on next year's lottery, more than likely you'll see a place where a 6th grader or a 7th grader or an 8th grader can apply for those programs through the lottery. It'll be listed in there. This way, the scenario I was just talking about, if there's open seats from students who aren't transferring 6th grade, obviously there would be, but if there's open seats in 7th and 8th grade, we'd go into that lottery to complete those sections to make sure they're full. So that's how that would work. Again, we don't know how many because we don't know how many students are coming in from different areas and boundaries. Much like that question about the high schools, we won't know which high schools they feed into until we have the boundaries are established, and especially at O.
Okay. It's an iPhone. We can show you the existing zone map. Once you go back a couple of slides yeah, that's the existing zones showing Woodlands and Crystal McAuliffe, but we don't have a boundary map for West Boynton area middle school yet. That will be determined. You can see where this school sits. It's currently sitting in Woodlands Middle School. So Lisa Youngelston said, do we know what high school this middle school will feed into with the other new high school by Woodlands being built? Jason?
Yeah, that will be determined as well, because as some of you may be aware, we're also opening a brand new high school during the same year, August 2023. So that's O. So we really need to take a total look of all the middle to high school feeder patterns, looking at the potential zones for O as well as potential zones for double P, and try to come up with the best feeder patterns. So that also will be determined during the zone setting process.
Thank you. Mira asked, if your child is in the IT program at Woodlands, will they automatically place an IT at the new school or have to apply? Dr. LaCobb?
That'll be a transfer over. The only way I could see this being an issue is if we have so many students transferring and we don't have the capacity. But I don't see that happening. We'll try and accommodate every child to make sure they move, because that's the plan. That's why they're in there. So I don't foresee this as being a problem, that if they are moving, they get moved right into the academies.
Thank you. AG asks, will there be an actual reduced speed school zone added? Sunset Palms may actually be the only school in the county or anywhere without one. I don't know if anybody on this, Dave or Renee has been conversation, or Aaron has been conversations about reduced school zone.
I can't answer that, Joe. I truthfully don't know. Certainly I could find out that question.
Okay.
Yeah, and Joe, we have had initial discussions with county traffic about a number of issues, and that was certainly one on there. It would be a combination of the middle school and the elementary school.
Okay, thank you. David asked who prepared the traffic study. Who Dave or Aaron, prepared, or Renee?
The traffic study was done by Simmons and White.
Simmons and White. All right, Marjorie Levine asks, what time does school, what is this time of the school day? Dr. Okada, do you want to talk about the school hours?
Sure. Most of our middle schools run anywhere from 9:15, starting 9:30, 9:40. We have one special one that starts a little different time, and they usually end at around 4:15, 3:45, depending on when they start, but those are normal hours. This will be considered, especially considering there's an elementary school next door, make sure the traffic can clear during that time. I would not expect it to start earlier than 9 o'clock, more closer to 9:15 or 9:30 as standard.
Okay. Lisa Youngelston again asks, if child is in Cambridge program at Woodlands, what will happen if there is no Cambridge program at the new middle school?
So that's one of the ones we'd like to be able to answer completely with that saying guaranteed, but more than likely we will be doing a Cambridge program or type program. The difficulty with Cambridge is you have to apply for it, and it takes at least a year to do that, but you also have to have a school to do that with. Would they be able to stay there? That would be down the line to see how many students are there. But again, we will have Cambridge there. It just, you can't do it overnight because it's not an internal program like our choice programs. It does take a year to 2 years, and you do have to have an established school to go there. So we would have to look at that as a possible reassignment. Other than that, if we can get those Cambridge-like programs and be applying, and that's one of the criteria for the principals that'll be applying, that they have to have some experience in choice programs, particularly Cambridge. So you're on the right track, and we'll be able to continue to answer that, Ms. Youngleson, as we move. For those, Joe, are we going to give each other's email out, or do we want to do that? I'll type mine in the box if anyone has.
Absolutely. If you could type your email address in the box, if people have some follow-up questions, that'd be helpful. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any raised hands. I didn't see any. I just scrolled through the attendees. I didn't see any raised hands, and I think I got to the last of the questions. So before I end the meeting, though, I just wanted to, I don't know if Mrs. Brill, if you wanted to say a few more words, or.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. You're very thoughtful questions, and thank you to all of those participating on behalf of the school district in the meeting. I think this answered a lot of questions. And importantly, for those of you who are watching, if you have additional questions, please feel free to share them. You can email them to us and we will get back to you. I know that Beth Rappaport will make sure that Cobra gets the questions as well. So, and the answers. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I know how excited everyone is about the school, and we want to make it a success for everybody. And we will continue to talk to everyone and consider, your concerns. So thank you.
Okay, so a couple of us typed in our email addresses if you need to reach out to us. Again, thank you on behalf of the school district for your attendance this evening. We're looking forward to the groundbreaking. We will be announcing that date sometime shortly. And we just look forward to a fantastic project and opening the school up in August of 2023 and welcoming many of your students into the school. So thank you all for being here tonight, and have a great night. Take care.
Thank you, Joe, for everything.
All right. Bye now.